At present, our speaker is the current president of the Horry County Republican Women's Club. She is a conservative first and a Republican second. Join me in welcoming Shannon Grady. Ms. Grady.
Good evening, everybody. Let me correct one thing he said. I am a Christian first, a conservative second, and then I'm a Republican third. Okay. I love you, man. No, I'm not like Mike Pence. I take that as an offense. Okay, Mike Pence is spineless. He has a wishbone where a spine should be. I am running for County Council District 8 because I, like many of you in this room, are very dissatisfied with what was happening in our county. Now, yes, I'm a realtor of sorts, and I say of sorts because it's really a hobby. I'm a retired school teacher and administrator. So real estate is not really something I do for a living. It's something I do to keep myself from being bored, okay? If you want to know the truth, this past year I did 2 deals, that's it. So you don't have to worry about me going in and being some kind of major developer or somebody who's out here to make a buck off of every opportunity that comes our way. That's not me. My opponents, however, are, one of them is a D.R. Horton developer. One of them is a big real estate agent. He's got huge billboards in various locations around here. And the other one is a broker and agent for an insurance company that supports some of these major developers. So I think what separates us is I'm not in it for the money, I'm in it for what's right. And what's right is that we take care of the people of Horry County first. We don't take care of ourselves first. I'm not going to run for this position so I can try to find out the latest developments that's going to move here, or maybe purchase some land so I can build a house on it and sell it, or hey, I know the interstate's going to go through here, so I'm going to buy land. Oh, I'm sorry, that's already purchased, my mistake. Yeah, so I believe we have some serious issues. Some of those include, obviously, the flooding problem that we've talked about, but we also have some issues with our roads and congestion. Now, I've heard a myriad of examples of reasons why we need things like I-73 to include, well, I-73 is going to bring industry. It's going to bring all kind of businesses, and we're going to flourish from that. Well, to steal something from Mr. Bailey and from Mark McBride, if that were true, then Florence ought to be the richest county in South Carolina because it has not 1, but 2 interstates in it, okay? So that's not true. That's a false argument, period. The second point that I hear all the time in trying to champion the I-73 is that, well, it's going to make it easier for tourists to get here. Have you been to the Strand lately? There are no vacancies. Where the heck are we going to put these other tourists? They're going to come down I-73. We're going to stack them up like cordwood. There's nowhere for them to go. I have plenty of friends who own rental properties, and those rental properties are booked months, sometimes years in advance. I find that stupefying, but there are people who have actually booked their condominiums 5 years in advance. I don't know where I'm going to be 5 days from now. How in the world do they know they're coming back here in 5 years? That's amazing. So I'm here to tell you that that's not a legitimate answer either. But if you really want I-73 and we can get the federal government to give us the money to make that happen in 10 to 15 years, which is how long it'll take if we get the federal government to give us the money, then all right, bring it on. Let's do I-73. But first, while we're waiting on the minutia that it's going to take to get the federal money, let's work on our local roads. Let's work on having fire and police and schools and utilities. Can we do that first? Can we put Horry County first? I really believe in this man's position, America first. Well, when you start with America first, it's got to filter down to your states and your communities. I have seen so much that has upset me as a citizen and as a veteran and as the wife of a veteran. I love our governor. I think he's done a fair job, and I say fair, because there's a lot of times when we're not first. I want a kind of guy like the guy down there in Florida, who's a trendsetter, who says, we're not going to put up with this, and then he takes action. Now, I understand there's a difference in how the Florida legislator works and the South Carolina legislator works. I get that. Well, let's fix it. Because let me tell you something, folks, we are ranked 34th in conservative states. 34th. We're purple. And we currently have a super majority of Republicans. What's going on? How do we have a super majority of Republicans and yet we're ranked 34th in conservative states? I'll tell you why. Because a lot of those people that are going to Columbia and going to D.C. claiming themselves as Republicans are anything but conservative. You can be a Republican and not be a conservative. Now I know my campaign manager is probably going to look at me and say, Shannon, you can't say some of the things you're saying because you're going to upset people. But I can't lie. I'm just going to say it the way I see it. And the way I see it is we have a serious sickness in the Republican Party, and it's time that somebody introduces a cure. And I'd like to be a part of that treatment. We need to start by putting some strong conservative voices on county council, in the state house, in the White House, in the Congress, in D.C., and so I want to be part of that. Now, I don't have all the answers, but I do understand what needs to be done. And I have gone out and I've knocked on over 200 doors now to talk to the constituents, and they've told me repeatedly what they see as the issue, and it's no shocker. It's the same things I just said to you. They're tired of not being able to get out of their driveway because the traffic is so horrible. And Lord, when school's in, you can't get out. If you live on the Forestbrook Road, how many people live in that area? Anybody in this district? Okay, I know I got some folks there. I used to live in Hunter's Ridge, which is right over there where the elementary school is located. And honestly, you had to time it perfectly because if you missed it by 5 minutes, it was going to change your arrival time by 30. That's no joke. And occasionally I actually said to my son, maybe boy, you drive, I'll get out and delay the traffic. You pull out into the road and we'll go. You know, and we can laugh about that because it's ha-ha funny until something happens like a hurricane. We have been adding 100 families per day for over 2 years. Over 2 years. Now I know we're not anywhere near the border. We're not getting 18,000 a day like they're getting over there. Maybe we can get new phones for all the people moving here. What do y'all think? Everybody gets a new phone. I'm Horry County get a new phone. I don't know who's paying for that, but I guess we're paying for that. But when you have 100 new families moving here per day, what that means is that traffic congestion is going to continue to steadily become worse and worse and worse. And I'm sick and tired of having that can kicked down the road because nobody wants to have the cojones to stand up and say, we got to make a change. So I was asked, well, Shannon, if you go into this council and you're the only female and all these guys are in there, aren't you going to be intimidated? I think they got that reversed. The guys on the council are going to be intimidated because I'm going to tell you right now, I ain't going to take no BS off nobody. Okay? Nobody. And I was asked by the CCAR, who I'm guessing I'm not going to get the endorsement, which that's okay because I probably don't want it anyway. They asked me, they said, you know, Miss Grady, if you run for office and you win, do you plan on hearing, you know, opinions from the public and listening to what the public has to say? And I really wanted to say, are you stupid? Because that's the whole point of being a representative. I'm not there to represent my opinion. I'm there to represent your opinion. And we have lost sight of that. I give you a great example. His name is Tom Rice. I was scared. I was so afraid. And I felt like I had to vote to impeach him. Dude. You were in the state that gave that man more votes than any president in our nation's history. And you didn't think that was going to have a consequence? Oh, he said, well, they'll forget. So Tom Rice thinks we're all idiots. Anybody here think are you an idiot? Raise your hand if you're an idiot. Tom? Well, Deet's raised her hand, but she actually might be. So, listen. You have to understand your constituency. When you have a president that's that popular, that gets that many votes, you need to take a pause and really think about it. Now, I was scared. I thought my life might have been in danger, even though I was already gone by the time the people got there. That's another note. And I was there, by the way. And it wasn't that scary. So, I really don't understand what he was afraid of. But anyway, you have to think about what your constituents think. Now here's my position. I'm going to try to do what's best based on what it is the folks in my district want me to do. And so long as what they ask me to do is legal, constitutional, I'm all for it, even if it goes against what I believe. So for instance, I-73. 99.9% of the people I've talked to thus far, and I haven't talked to everybody, it's a big district, they have all said 100%, I-73 might be nice in the future, but right now let's work on our roads here. I'm tired of my yard flooding. I'm tired of not being able to get home from work until 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock, and I get off at 4. I'm tired of having difficulty getting out in the morning. And if we have a hurricane here, if you think what happened in Virginia is bad, wow, it's really going to be bad here, because we got so many people that's moved in this area that I don't know how we're going to get them out of here, because our escape routes are not that great. Okay? Unless we're going to have little helicopters, they're going to fly down and pick people up, which, you know, we got all this money for phones, maybe we got money for that too. By the way, let me just ask you the question, guys. Seriously, the phone may not be that expensive, but the story that they're giving is that those phones are going to be used to track the people. What do you have to be able to track somebody with a phone? What has to be on that phone? A data plan, right? Who's paying for that? We are. We are. There's your money for I-73, ladies and gentlemen, right there, going into the pockets of illegals. We have lots of problems. Part of the problems are certainly at the national level. We also have problems at the state level. I am sick and tired of hearing people say, I'm going to vote this way, I'm going to vote that way, and then they get there and they don't vote that way. Mr. Hembry, I'm going to call you out, okay? Mr. Hembry was emphatic that he was all for making sure that only women compete in sports. And by the way, Miss Justice, whatever your name is, I can define a woman. Can anybody in this room not define a woman? If you don't know how to define a woman, let me know. I'll define it for you now. Okay? I know what a woman is. I know what a man is. And I know that only women have children. Sorry, guys, you can't have children. Okay? Guess what? I can't be a dad. It's not possible. God didn't make us that way. So Mr. Henry is a great example of somebody who speaks out of both sides of his face. He told me, through his secretary, that he was all in favor of that bill. Oh, yes. And I said, well, if you're in favor of it, bring it up for a vote, and let's see if you put your money where your mouth is. Does anybody remember what he said when they took the vote? Anybody who votes for this bill is committing political suicide. Didn't really sound like he's for it. So he's a liar, and that's the kind of guy we got to get out. We need more people that have the courage of conviction to say what they mean and mean what they say. And if you don't run for office. Get out. Go home. Do something else. Just because you're an attorney does not mean that you're the better qualified candidate for any office. I want to see evidence that you actually have the ability to be conservative the way you say you are. I'm so sick of people claiming to be conservative. I don't think now that's something they can't define. I can define a woman, but I guarantee you there are a lot of people out there professing to be conservative. They couldn't defend or define what a conservative is if their life depended on it. I am a conservative. I believe in small government. In some ways, I believe in small business too, because and there are certain cases, I know you guys understand me, when big business can be just as rotten as government. Twitter, Facebook. We have got to take our country back, and it starts one vote at a time, one person at a time, one seat at a time. And it is going to be my heart's desire to not only represent the people of my district, but to actually bring true conservative values back to my home state. Thank you. I'll take questions. Come on, Ken. Yes, sir.
Sir, what was your name again? My name is. You're running for school?
Steve Webb.
Won't you hear something?
Yes, sir.
She told us today that in this state, there's a special group that chooses the books for our kids. Did you not?
That's correct.
Can you tell us?
Yes. When I was teaching, I had the opportunity, I was asked to be on the team that was going to select the textbooks. Now, I also taught AP courses, and so AP courses have a different set of parameters for which textbooks you're going to use. But essentially what happens is they give us 2 days. 2 days. You go to a place and all the various publishers show up. Of course, they're hawking their wares. They want you to buy their textbooks. They want you to use their books because they make money that way. Capitalism, I'm all for it. The problem with the way we select our textbook is literally you get your standards out, you get all these textbooks shoved in front of you, so you're flipping the book over, looking at the standards, looking through the index to see if it covers all of the standards that you're required to teach. That takes some time because there's a lot of books. Then when you're done with that, you say, okay, this book has the standards in it, this book doesn't, so we can't use it. The next phase is you get to talk to the various publishers. And the questions you ask are, okay, what comes with the textbook? Is there any software? Is there any online text material that we can use? That information gets done. At no point in time do we actually have time to read the books, to see what's in the books. So you can be rest assured that we don't know if there's critical race theory in them or not because we don't have time. We need to change that. That needs to be at least a week-long process. And here's a crazy idea. How about we have a couple parents volunteer to come out and go through those books? Yes, sir.
I actually went last week on Tuesday night to go and review the books that are going to be voted on by the school board at their next meeting. And I'm just going to tell you, there's about 3 or 4 of them in the geography section that actually touch on LGBTQIA issues as well as Black Lives Matter and CRT. And I'm not cool with it. So, I mean, that's coming from a libertarian. Yeah, I mean, there's major changes that need to be done. And if you, obviously, you serve the school system, what happens is that the Department of Education on the federal level goes ahead and tells the curriculum, or tells South Carolina Department of Education, this is what your standards are, what the curriculum is, and then like you just said, the publishers come with their books, they choose them at the state level.
Sort of, not exactly. That's not really accurate. The federal government does not tell you what curriculum, that's decided on at the state level, but I understand where you're going. The problem with textbooks is it's not really that the states really get to determine it. The publishers are only going to print so many books, okay? So what are the 2 largest states in our country? California and Texas, okay? So what I said this morning was that whatever textbooks those 2 states choose, that's pretty much the choices everybody else is going to get. You're not going to have a lot of other options because nobody else is going to publish a book for South Carolina. They're going to publish the books for those larger states. It would do absolutely no good for us to partner with California because they're going to be liberal as the day is long. But it makes all the sense in the world to get with Texas and see if we can't partner with them and some of the other southern states to make certain that the books that we're selecting, first of all, again, I go back to, we need more than 2 days. We need at least a week, and we need a team of people. I was the only person from the history department. The only person from the history department who was there trying to find these books. I'm just one person. I can't possibly, have you seen a history book lately? They're this thick, okay? When you teach the AP courses, guess who decides what the AP books are going to be? That's the universities. They make those decisions, okay? We don't get to make that decision. In fact, we have to get approval from them in order to be able to teach the courses. So I can't tell you how many times I went through textbooks and thought, well, that's garbage, I'm not teaching that. Well, that ain't going to get taught, I'm not going to say that. Well, that's not good. No, well, that's just flat out wrong. That's not even true. I mean, it's really sad. But if you have a teacher who has no real connection to history, who really didn't go somewhere where they learned true history, true civics, they're not going to know that. And a long time ago, someone said that conservatives built all the schools and then we turned them over to the liberals. And that seems to be what's happened, which is why I'll tell you, honestly, I've been a public school teacher. My son has never spent a day in a public school. He's always been in a private Christian school because I know what they teach. I ain't sending him into that. Now, unfortunately, not every family has that opportunity. God bless my family with the financial means to be able to put them through public school. And I only have one, so I know families that have 2 to 3 kids, that's not an option for you. For some families, they can homeschool. But what is an option for you, and I think COVID has been the greatest benefit to the education system of anything that's ever happened, and it's simply because for the first time, parents had no choice but to listen to what it is their kids were being taught. Okay? And I'm so glad they did. Now, y'all might figure out I get kind of fired up about things. So one of the things that frustrates me is the apathy that exists in our communities. Okay, apathy. The 80-20 principle applies no matter what business entity, what church group, what civics group, whatever group you pick. It's true. And that means 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. I'd actually argue it's more like 90-10. Yeah, 90% of the work is done by 10% of the people. That has to change. We cannot expect our nation, our government, local, state, federal, to ever shift if you sit at home and the only thing you know about your elected leaders or the candidates that you're going to vote for is what you hear on that boob tube or what you get to see on Facebook. I'll give you an example. I don't know how many of you guys watch various TV shows, but I don't remember who it was. It was something I saw really quickly. They were talking about Gmail as an example. How many people have Gmail? Did you know that during the months leading up to the election, 80% of any conservative email in the Gmail system is not sent? They block it. 80%. Now, when it's not an election season, it's somewhere around 60%. That's terrible. Yahoo. There's a lot of things about Yahoo I don't like, and I know a lot of people love Gmail. But really and truly, you better get another email account. 80% of your email is getting stopped. Now, Jerry will tell you, we use MailChimp, which uses Gmail. Ladies, raise your hand if you've ever had a problem where you didn't get an email from us. Raise your hand. Okay. So what does that tell you? We have to be aware of all of our circumstances. Dan Bongino talks about it all the time, parallel economies. Okay? Part of a parallel economy can only be successful if we, the people, get behind those economies. And they'll never be successful if we maintain this 90-10 or 80-20. We've got to get more people involved. We've got to get people off the couch. We've got to get people in the game. You can't sit on the sidelines anymore. You have to be an active participant. That means when we have our next election, if you're not running for office yourself, you need to be a poll worker. If you cannot be a poll worker, be a poll volunteer. That is the only way we can make certain that our elections are actually fair. I've heard every argument in the book from, we need to go back to paper. Okay, let's stuff some ballots. That sounds brilliant. No, that's why we went to the machines, because people were stuffing the ballots with paper ballots. Well, let's go to the computer. Well, we all know how that worked out for us, right? So the only way this really works is what we have in South Carolina is a dual system. We have paper ballots and we have a digital process. I just ask that we do something. I don't think it can be that difficult because each precinct should be able to do this. We should be able to look and see, okay, 1,000 paper ballots are in here. Let's count how many digital votes there are. If there's 1,000 ballots and 800 voted for candidate and 200 voted for candidate B, and then you go look at the digital and it's completely flipped, and you've got 200 voted for candidate B and 800 voted for candidate A, what do we know happened? They cheated. So there is already a mechanism in place to make sure we don't have elections that go south. We just aren't utilizing that in the way that we should. So those are things we need to do. We need you folks to work at the polls. We need you to be volunteers. Not just, we absolutely have to have workers, because what happened in our last election is all those people that were volunteers, they couldn't get back. They couldn't get the access. They couldn't see that you would take place. Look at what happened in Pennsylvania. They literally told them that there should be another one. What you should see is that in Pennsylvania, the problem was there were people that showed up who were poll workers, and they had their badges, and they wouldn't let them in. You guys remember that? Yeah. Well, that was totally legal, right? Mm-hmm. Then they went and got the police, and the police said, we can't help you. So this is one time we have to make certain that we have people that are going to be protecting our right to vote, which means you have to be poll workers, not just volunteers, because the workers are the ones who are going to be there making sure the votes are counted correctly. Because in the end of all things, doesn't matter how you vote, doesn't matter who votes, it doesn't matter what way you vote, it only matters who counts the votes. That's all that matters. Any other questions? Right. Yes, Stalin said that, you're right. That's it.